All right, here we are, live and in color.
Right. Hello,
So,
Hartford. How you doing this morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're watching this? I hope you're having a good day.
hello, all my haters. Yeah.
No, no. I totally get this. No, no hating. To be honest with you, I get it. I know that we're probably starting like right into a conversation, but to add, there's so much fraud in the industry. I understand it. I've seen it myself before something actually happened to me. But I suppose with that being said, you definitely cannot tell a person's issues just by looking at them. You can't. There's no way.
Okay. A quick little what do you call it? It's not an analogy. It's just something that quickly happened. I'll just run this by you real quick, and then we'll get on to the topic at hand. There was a girl who was parked in a handicapped parking spot,
Mhm.
and a woman came out. She wanted to park there, and she's like, this is closer for me. There's nothing wrong with you. Get out of the parking lot. Get out of the parking spot because I could use it
Mhm.
because I have to run in and out. She's like, no, I'm not getting out of it. She's like, you don't even have a handicap sticker, lady. Get out of the parking spot. And the woman refused, and the accuser got out of her car and approached the car as if to get violent.
Mhm.
So the woman who had parked the car opened her door and basically swung her feet out and took off her prosthetic leg. And said, do you really want me to get out now? Just because you don't see that I'm disabled doesn't mean that I'm not.
Right.
And the woman turned red and started yelling at her, how dare you embarrass me like that?
Wow. No, maybe I didn't see this one then.
All you
Or
had to
maybe
do
it's
was
just unfortunate that there's so many
all you had to do was tell me
situations
that
like that happen all the time.
all you had to do was tell me about your situation, and that would have been enough. You didn't have to do all that.
You can mind your own business too. Just not
Well,
worry about it.
that's
If
the
that
thing.
person
People,
is doing something wrong, they'll deal with that. Their situation will happen.
it's gotten to the point where I'm afraid. I used to when I drove, and even when my daughter drives me, I'm afraid to park in a handicapped spot because I look perfectly normal. I have a heart condition that if I walk across a parking lot, I could drop dead.
Mhm.
But I look perfectly normal when if you see me walking around, and I don't
No,
really
I
want to.
I could easily get a handicap parking spot myself, but
Yeah.
I, you know, I've said this before. You've heard me. My dad's best advice is when you stop moving, you're dead. And I don't like my car being fucked with. I've had $2,800 worth of damage on one of my cars while I was in the store once. Three cars hit three, and I had a little Volkswagen at the time.
On the same
You
day.
know, no, in the same time I was in the store. Yes, one visit, $2,800 worth of damage to my fucking car. So yeah, I parked far away. From any store I'm at, going to a parking
You're
spot, make sure no one can park on one side of me or behind me.
you're not one of those douchebags who take up like
No,
two lanes because you park
no,
diagonal.
no, because I hate people like that. That's bullshit. But I park so that when you park next to me, because you're gonna, when you open up your door, you can't hit me. If you
Oh,
hit
I
me,
see.
you did it on purpose. So even if you're a big dude or whatever, you'll still be able to get out of your fucking car if you park next to me. Because I'll park next to the curb that's at my driver door because I back into my spot.
Right,
I
right.
like to make sure no one can park behind me either if I can. I mean, it sucks. I have to walk a little further, but how often do I get out of my house? I don't get out of my house very much. I need to take advantage of those walks. I'm not afraid of the rain, the snow, the whatever. I grew up in that shit. Yeah. But
Well, today's
that's my point of exercise. That's the exercise I get. I have to get it. You know.
today's topic or title is Injustice Among Us.
Oof.
And
Well.
I think we should start off with some of the obvious cases
Mm,
and situations that are present and recent. Um,
it's quite
you
a
brought
bit.
I mentioned earlier the Breonna Taylor case.
I watched something on that a little bit ago. Wow, it's powerful.
Now, let me tell you, this is how much I know. Her and her boyfriend were asleep in their house. The cops busted in looking for an ex-boyfriend of hers, and she ends up getting shot and killed.
A little more to that, I discovered that while all that was happening, the boyfriend that they were looking for was 10 miles away.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, he had nothing to do with her. They hadn't seen each other or talked to each other or anything. They
Right.
had, they just basically had the bad information.
Yeah, absolutely bad information.
But to take
The
it to the point
informant, the
where,
informant like set him up.
but to take it to the point where an unarmed individual who was asleep ends up dead,
Mm-hmm.
it there's no excuse.
Well, in the some of the SWAT video of the aftermath, you could hear the guys talking, saying, this is that fucking warrant that we didn't want to serve. We turned this one down. Yeah. So the SWAT team had turned it down because it wasn't a good warrant. The warrant was a lie, and the SWAT team even knew it, and they got that on camera. But it's convenient how the guys breaking into the home, all of their body cams were off. All of them. That's saying something.
And of course, the police department is standing by him saying, at that time, we didn't have a policy that said they had to be on.
Well, they were supposedly known. It was I thought it was a no-knock warrant, but I don't know now because they apparently did knock, because you can hear it in. There's a surveillance that you can hear it in. I think.
Even if it's a no knock, why are their cameras off?
Oh yeah, nothing should. Yeah, and they even say it's in violation of departmental policies.
Oh, they did. So the department's not standing by saying, yeah, no, it wasn't a policy back then.
At least that's my understanding of it.
Well,
the video I sent you, it's in there, and that seems pretty factual to me. They use some pretty compelling evidence.
Your question was why haven't they been prosecuted yet?
Only one of them has, and he's the dude who was outside that blindly fired into the building.
Oh, right.
He's the only one so far that's on federal charge.
Well, I know that the other three are facing federal charges.
It went to a grand jury, but the guidelines they gave to the grand jury, none of those charges that they offered fit the crime. So the grand jury said, this doesn't fit. We can't, these aren't the charges that they need to have. So that's why the grand jury didn't do its job, because they didn't have the tools that they needed.
You saw the program you saw.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what you saw, should the boyfriend have been charged with anything?
He never was. But he still spent a year in jail until they dismissed the charges. A judge dismissed the charges.
What were the charges?
Attempted murder first it was murder of a police officer, then it was attempted murder on a police officer. I don't know what it was after that. But on the way, what I had
heard. Did he kill a police officer?
He shot one in the leg.
But he
only fired once. They fired over 30 times back.
And he wasn't struck?
No, he wasn't struck, but Brianna was right next to him, and she was hit 6 times. So he just got lucky. Lucky. Because it was down a narrow hallway. Or he could have been just... I can understand it, because Brianna wasn't, small. And he's not either. So I think where the bedroom was, and I want to say perhaps a bathroom, like just another, or a closet, whatever, in the hallway that they were in, that Brianna was just more in the hallway than he was. He might have been firing in a doorway. That kind of makes sense from seeing the footage I'm seeing now, which is appropriate. That's a good way to fire. Maybe he didn't realize how close she was. I bet I could imagine the adrenaline. They thought they were criminals. They had no idea they were cops. They never themselves. They were no idea. And then as she's bleeding out, he's on 911. So they play that. And then so he winds up going out, and they're like, "Are you hit?" And the cops are asking the dude if he's hit. And he's like, "No." And the cop says, "Well, that's unfortunate." It was a half an hour before they even checked on Brianna. And it was more than 12 hours before they took her body out of the hallway, out of the house. You know, when the SWAT team went in there, they found her EMT code, you know, that she's a first responder. And they commented on that. Like, dude, look at this shit. This is all fucked up. You know, the SWAT team knew. You know, they knew.
While we're talking about injustices, I don't know if you saw this or not. There was an elderly black gentleman in his car. He was a little bit of medical background. He had a condition that made him super susceptible to COVID. So
Yes, I saw this. This is a TYT show, I think.
Even in his car, he wore a mask and gloves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he was rear-ended by an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, yeah.
And the cops ended up pulling him out of the car,
ripping him out of the car. Yeah,
abusing him, and then charging him with one charge of resisting arrest. Mm-hmm. Now, my question is, how do you get charged with resisting arrest if there were no charges to arrest you with?
That's a good point right there.
I mean,
that should have been the second charge, not the first.
Right. But there was no other charge.
If they do that to me, dude, I won't survive. I won't survive that.
You know, and the guy ended up going to jail, but they dropped the charges, and now he's suing the city, the county, and the police department.
And Brianna's boyfriend, he spent a year in jail before they dismissed the charges. 1 year.
But again, it's that you know. I understand qualified immunity
bullshit.
See, I understand qualified immunity to a point. Okay, to a point.
They need to reevaluate it, that's for sure.
But it should be only for justified incidents in the line of duty. For instance, if you're chasing a suspect and they're shooting at you and you shoot back, and one of your bullets ricochet and hit somebody else, okay, you got qualified immunity because you were in the act of doing something, you know, part of your duty to.
But that's not considered qualified immunity. That's in line of your duty. So that's not what that's called. Or if it is, that's not what it should be called. You know, that's in the line of your duty. That's in line of the whole crime. That's now an extra charge for the whoever they're shooting at, if they're defending themselves. But I'm just hitting this one thing. But the part of that is, I don't care what the guy's doing. If the bad guy's firing at you and you're a cop, you can only fire back if, one, you know you're going to hit your target. Cops need to be marksmen. If you're not a marksman, don't be a cop, period. You need to hit what you're shooting at. You can't fire in a residential area if you're not 100% sure you're going to hit the motherfucker. You know, and that means you might lose cops that way, or more injuries than cops. But you know what? I'm sorry, but that's the part of the job you signed up for. You're protecting the public by not returning fire, because either one, you're not that good of a shot. Maybe your adrenaline is up. You need to calm the fuck down, or whatever. But your bullets need to hit what you're looking at. You need to see the gun. You need to see it, not like guess or whatever. You know, if you don't see a muzzle flash and you hear a noise, that doesn't mean they fired it. You know, we need cops that think like that. You know, just because you're receiving fire, that doesn't mean you return fire. You have to wait. You have to wait till you have the opportunity to do it correctly.
Yeah, but see, here's the issue. They can't. They're not okay. Yes, gun ownership should be that way, regardless of whether you're a cop or not.
He had every right to defend himself. He had every right to shoot those cops. Every right.
But here's where I start to have issues. I don't know if you saw this today or yesterday, but there was an incident where a man was in Texas, where they had just done that, passed that law where you can carry concealed without a permit, or carry without a permit.
Yeah. Yes.
So he got into an argument with a dude, pulled out his gun. And I'm not sure if the guy was running away or if he was at a distance, but he took a couple shots at the guy, missed him. The bullet went into a truck and killed a 9-year-old girl. Now, in any other land in the entire planet, that would be at best negligent homicide, at worst manslaughter.
I do see, well, probably negligent homicide because he's performing his duty, and that was collateral damage of his duty. It wasn't his intent to kill that child.
No, he wasn't a cop. He was just a person. He was just a person.
Oh.
Just a person. Now listen. Here's the thing.
Negligent homicide fits still. But that person should not have fired until he absolutely knew he was going to hit his target.
Here's the thing. It went to the grand jury. And the grand jury said what he did was absolutely acceptable.
See, no, I disagree with that. There needs to be a consequence for your action, just like the police do. If a cop was in that situation and not a civilian, and the cop hit that child, he should be charged with negligent homicide because we expect him to definitely be able to identify and hit a target or know enough to not fire if he's not sure.
So he killed a 9-year-old girl.
Maybe we need a civilian version of negligent homicide like police do, because I'm not necessarily saying it was wrong for him to fire or whatever. I understand.
Well, I believe we should. I believe we do have a negligent homicide for civilians in cases where the gun accidentally goes off. The gun accidentally goes off.
Yeah, sure.
You know, or you didn't realize there was another one in the chamber type of thing.
And those usually don't come with penalties.
You know, but
usually you get away with nothing on those, other than a trial.
Well, and I say unless somebody dies, then you should be held accountable. But this is a 9-year-old girl who was just sitting in her truck.
You don't get held with a capital crime, though.
No,
by no means. It's
I'm saying maybe you should get a few years in prison or a decade on probation.
Yeah, a decade on probation is what I'm thinking. Yeah. I don't think you need to serve jail time, especially if it was a child someone close to you. You've already suffered your crime. You've paid your price because you're going to always carry that with you. So I could see a probationary period for that.
But this guy got completely off. And, this reminds me of the...
I don't agree with that.
This reminds me of the Trayvon Martin case, the stand your ground bullshit. Where, hey, you could shoot somebody because we loosened up the gun laws.
Yeah.
And now you have a dead 9-year-old.
I'm not opposed to a stand your ground gun law, but it needs to be accompanied with a negligent portion of it where, okay, you can stand your ground, but if it turns out that the person you were defending yourself against was not hostile or whatever, it was an ambiguous situation and you overreacted, well, then it gets turned around. You get charged with crimes. If your actions caused the death or harm or injury of another innocent, then you need to face consequences for that.
Well, I know that when we were in high school, I was going through special programs, and back then there was a equal force law where if someone has a gun, you can have a gun. If someone has a knife, you can have a knife. But if someone has a knife and you have a gun, then you got to be careful. Now, with stand your ground, you could have a gun and that person could have a stick of gum and you could still kill them and say,
yeah, right.
And I think that's totally ridiculous.
Well,
the only time stand your ground is if you're actually physically susceptible to bodily harm. In other words, if he's coming at you with a baseball bat.
I think if an unarmed man came at me with the intention to beat the shit out of me or worse, in my physical condition, I think a gun is warranted in that circumstance because I know what's going to happen if I get hit in the face with much stronger than me. I'm going to shoot your ass. I may not try to kill you. I may just try to stop you. But I think in that instance, I have the right, because of my limitations, to defend myself with that type of force in my home. I mean, in my surroundings, whatever, my car, somebody actually going after me personally. You know what I mean? I think under those situations that people,
I think non-lethal weapons or less lethal weapons should be required in situations like that.
and to be honest with you, I don't even know if I can fire a gun. I haven't fired one since my injury. So I'm a little afraid to. I don't know if I can hold it.
But there's
My
way too
buddy's a
much.
cop down here. I want to go with him to a range or something and maybe
There's
take
way
him to.
there's way too much of everyone, of law enforcement getting themselves in trouble, and their first instinct is to cover it up instead of tell the truth.
Yeah.
Take responsibility.
Yeah.
Instead, a cover up just causes more problems.
But we're raised that way. We're, kids, the first thing kids do is try to cover up for punishment. I mean, it's something that's in our nature. Maybe we need to find a way to, it's like something I always taught my son is I don't care what you've done. As long as you come clean, you might not even get punishment. I said, but man, if I find out you friggin' lied to me, man, I'll tell you, there's nothing that pisses me off more.
As long as you come clean, we'll deal with it. You lie to me, you're on your own.
Yep, pretty much.
And I think that should go for police officers as well. If something happens either on or off duty, and other officers know that you're lying about the situation, either they come forward or you all get fired.
Or they're all culpable in some fashion. Yep, because it's
all get fired. No, culpable. You all get fired because you did not follow your oath of office.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing I just said. Yeah. Yeah. There's consequences for actions, and there needs to be. That's the same with our politicians and all this lying. That's the same with our news. News when we were kids, I didn't feel like I was being lied to every 5 seconds. I feel like that now in a lot of places. I don't necessarily think it's CNN or mainstream. They just don't cover enough. I wish there were more stories that they were covered. But maybe that's what all these little things that we watch on the side do. I'm all right with that. You want to cover the big stories, that's fine. I have a place to go now to get the stories that I still need to hear. So I don't think in that regard, mainstream media is the evil it's given to, with the exception of Fox News, of course. But there needs to be accountability for those. You can't give an opinion piece that's a flat out lie. It's a fabrication. It's a fallacy. You can't do that, not without consequences. And we need to find ways to do that. And if we lose November, dude, they're going to fix that for us. So we won't have that option.
All right, Matt. Thank you for again your participation in this awesome podcast, and we'll see each other on the other side.